Hello, my name is Hannah Ross, and I'm a biopsychology student at Oxford College. I was invited here today by your teacher to get you guys excited about science, especially when you're beginning your journey into high school. Although it may seem boring or not relevant to what you're doing, it's actually quite exciting, so I want to get you guys amped up. So I'm going to tell you a story I find really interesting, which was the discovery, pretty much the discovery between how your like damage to your brain can affect your personality. So let's pretend it's 1848 where we basically have no medical knowledge. Like, example, if you get a pneumonia, your mom's probably going to say, oh, it's bad air. No one's going to really be able to help you, and likely you're going to die from it. Today, obviously, we have antibiotics and all those things, so medicine has really progressed, but in 1848, we barely knew anything. So let's imagine a man named Phineas Gage who was working on a railroad with his crew. His job as foreman was to take his tamping rod, which is about 8 inches long. It had a different diameter on either side, so it kind of got like long to thicker, and he would use it to poke the dynamite into the holes. So one fall day, by accident, or if he wasn't paying attention, I'm not sure, he exploded the dynamite to when he wasn't ready. Lodged, shot up, like accelerated super fast, through his head, right through his head, exited and landed behind him several yards. So it like literally shot through him and was gone. There was nothing still in him. And his crew was shocked. They ran over to him, I'm sure thinking he was dead after a dynamite explosion, and they were shocked when they found Gage, who was talking, alive, and seemed to be coherent. Obviously, it was a bloody, gory mess, and he was not okay, but the fact that he was alive was shocking. So he was brought to a doctor, Dr. Harlow, who stopped his hemorrhaging, fixed some skull fragments that had kind of fallen out of place, and removed some bone which had gotten in his skull. After his watch and observation 1 year later, Gage was allowed to go home, and he was fine. He was seemingly perfectly fine, other than losing his vision in the left eye and a couple scars, but that's expected. So he returned home, and his family and friends began to notice some differences in him. He didn't seem to be the normal Gage they had already always known. He wasn't as nice. He was described as angry, drunk, malicious, mean, violent. The list goes on. So what accounted for his personality change? And Dr. Harlow obviously made the association that his brain damaged it. And at this time, this was a crazy concept that damage to your brain could result in your personality changing. Because your personality is a part of you, and why would damage to a physical part of you change that? That wasn't understood. Now, looking back on it, we know that the tampering rod went through the left side of his face underneath his zygomatic arch. It hit the back of the base of his skull, went through that, and exited left of the britma. So it passed through his frontal cortex, which is right here on you, and is your personality, or controls your decision making, thinking, emotions. That's all right here. So when people tell you, oh, you're young and stupid, your prefrontal cortex isn't developed, it's because you actually can't think to your full ability. So that's where that all comes from. So Gage lost all his social inhibitions, and pretty much what the tampering rod did was perform a frontal lobotomy on him, which I don't know if any of you have seen Shutter Island or something. That's what I always immediately think of. But basically, a frontal lobotomy is just where the front of your brain, some parts are taken out in hope of kind of seducing the patient. It will happen in like mental hospitals, or if someone is crazy, they'll perform a frontal lobotomy and then they become normal because they're just very baseline. They don't really have any thinking, no real emotion. So we have learned so much, and the importance of the Phineas Gage story is that it was pretty much our first recorded brain trauma that someone survived, which is insane because mostly when people study the brain, they don't get to study a live brain in someone. But for Gage to have experienced the trauma, and then the doctor could then follow up with him, an alive person, instead of just studying the skull, Much information was to be learned, and also just the association of the brain was not just some like box in your head that doesn't control what the rest of you is like. This association was very revolutionary. So there's so many still questions we don't know though. Example, how are the mind and the brain connected? Like when you think inside your head, you obviously can't point to a certain part of your head that like allows for that, but how is that explained? So maybe you guys will research more on the mind and the brain, or how the brain affects the body. There's much work to be done. And in this intro class, I know a lot of the ideas seem, you know, not so relevant, but actually it's the basics you need to know to go on to research and understand further problems that are more exciting. So yeah, thank you.